to the Sad Dads Club podcast. Here's everybody's favorite sad dads, Jim and Foo.
There's an older gentleman at work. Who some years ago, have you watched any of the Jack Ryan series on Amazon Prime?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
A few shows. I'm pretty sure.
A few?
At least.
Somewhere years ago when the first season came out, we were jumped on a call, and I was late to the call, and someone was talking about new shows, and we'll call him Bob. Bob was midway through a story about talking about the season, about the series on Amazon, and I said, whoa, Bob, I just started that.
Hold on, what was the name I gave you?
Yeah,
Bob,
Bobinator. I said, well, no spoilers. I just started it. You know,
shut the fuck up.
Right. And he was like, oh, okay. And there was an awkward moment of, because he was mid sentence talking about a thing.
Yeah.
And then I cut him off because I was like, hey, fucker. Like, I don't want to know how it ends. It's a good series. It's a good series.
Yeah. I like Jim.
Jim Bob?
No, Jim.
Jim?
As
a catch-all?
Well, his name's Jim in The Office.
Oh, yes. A show I'd never watched.
Oh, you never watched The Office?
No.
You're like one of three people probably in America that's never watched The Office.
Which is weird, yeah. I would probably watch the UK one for Ricky Gervais before I would watch the American one. I just don't have the time. Yeah. I love, at this point, all the characters in there, but never watched it. It was months later at some point. I think it was near Christmas when the second season came out, and he started a conversation. He was in dead air. He was like, "Oh, the second season of Jack Ryan came out," and we rattled on.
You're like, Bob?
Yeah. Hey, Bob. Remember when and so we talked about season 1. It's one of the few things where Bob and I can create
love together,
chit chat on
work love,
right? Like camaraderie,
sure.
Team
That's what you want to call
team
it.
building,
yeah.
Around Jack Ryan. So on occasion, he will float like some
obscure reference
to other shows. Like, hey, Jason, have you seen blah 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 blah?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have one of these people at work, someone that frequently is like a movie trivia person.
Okay.
Like he's that guy. And he's probably 15.
You're like, Bob, do you ever leave the house?
I don't think he does. Bob. He's probably 15 years above me. And so
he's 90.
For me, right. That makes you 106, dickhead. A lot of his movie references are because my music tastes are across the board.
Yeah.
I do get them, but it's like, buddy, that's no one cares. That one's so far. This reminds you of that movie with Lauren Bacall, and and you're like, I know what that is.
Yeah. But I don't know what that is.
But most of the people, but I don't know. So he'll constantly do these quips about movies from and it's just kind of But there was this Jack Ryan thing. So last year, and he's been showing his age because he's asked me.
Because he's 90.
Right, because he's 90. He's asked me this question twice.
So he's got Alzheimer's.
Right. So I think he's forgetting stuff. But today's call, he said...
Maybe he just didn't like the answer you gave him before.
Right. No, it was because he was... Right. He asked if I had watched the Rings of Power on Amazon.
Okay.
And I went...
Which is...
the Lord of the Rings
prequel?
prequel
Yeah,
stuff
okay.
that happens before
All right. Before The Hobbit.
before The Hobbit.
I haven't watched that.
These are loosely based on the Silmarillion, which are like books that most Lord of the Rings fans can't be bothered to read because for some
Do
people
they have big words in them?
it's a rough read. It's like trying to read an encyclopedia,
Oh, geez.
like a novel.
Yeah.
In some cases, if you're a real buff, you've read it. There aren't too many people that will read the Silmarillion or some of his short story stuff that predate The Hobbit and go, man, front to back, loved every second of it. Like, they're complex reads.
Mm.
The Amazon series are kind of like stories taking cues from that period based off of some of the writings in there, and and it's an Amazon original series. So he asked, "Hey, have you seen season 2 of which it's been out for a while?" But I was like, "Oh, yeah."
So it's not like 3 movies or whatever. It's actually a series?
I think it's like a 8 or 9 episode series, I think.
All right.
Venus and I
think I saw it, but I haven't seen it.
they're good.
I
Anyway,
just saw that it
yeah.
was there. I haven't seen it.
So he asked, Hey, Jason, have you watched the second season of The Rings of Power?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, loved it." And he was like, "Oh, because I saw that it got some like differing reviews about, staying close to canon as far as like the books and whatnot." And I went, "You know what, Bob?"
Bob.
I said, my household is like a Lord of the Rings household. We love the books. Most of us in the house have, at least 2 of us,
We used to live back in the
read
day
the books.
there.
We own the movies. We'll put on the music and the soundtrack as ambient back noise. Like everyone in the house enjoys that mythos. And I said, and pretty much anything Lord of the Rings, I'm a giant nerd goblin, so I'll intake it. And I got a series of people losing their shit over the term nerd goblin.
I almost lost my shit.
It was pretty funny. It was, and then I'm getting DMs on the side from the Teams chat that we were on. It was like, "What the fuck is a nerd goblin?
Oh my God.
Nerd goblins! # nerd goblins!" Anyway, it was quite funny. I'm like, yeah,
That's
it's
funny.
It's good shit.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Awesome.
yeah. Go. What do you
Welcome to the
got?
show.
Welcome to the show. Sad Dad's Club Podcast, episode 300.
29.
29.
Yeah, 329.
I saw you look. Do you have a cue card?
No, I just happen to have our hosting page up, so it's there.
Oh, good for you.
Because for some reason our stats, we had more than 9 or 8 listeners
Oh, Jesus. Wow.
last week.
Well, thank all 10 of you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Anyway,
Yeah.
Go. What do you got?
Oh man, you ever done a decent sized drywall repair? And if so, how long did it take?
No. Ooh.
So-
yes, I have. But
so
it's been years.
Yeah, well, we have. I think I talked about this on the show in the past. It's one of my projects that I just really don't want to do.
Oh, the bathroom corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not wet anymore, so I have solved that issue. Right?
Have you tried lube or spitting on it?
Yes.
All righty. Okay.
So it's all dried out, and so I don't know, 3 weekends ago, Chandler came over and we worked on it and got a patch in there and all this kind of stuff. So we taped it up, and so he left and it was just taped.
All right.
So with a decent sized patch,
like a foot by foot?
easily, yeah,
Okay.
something like that. Pretty decent.
Not a wall, but a good
I mean,
chunk.
big enough to go from one stud to the other,
Okay.
and kind of about the same height.
Okay.
About a square size, I would say. And so now I'm like, all right, it's going to take some sanding and some mud
Spackle.
and some,
Yeah.
you know,
Texturing.
yeah, so it's like one of those things where it's like, well, I'll let the tape dry out, and then maybe tomorrow I'll tackle try and get it smoothed out.
Right.
And it's been 3 weeks. So I've gotten to the point to where I'm like, hey, it seems pretty good. I got it sanded down. It looks nice.
Right.
Let's throw some texture on there.
Right.
And Chandler had left me a can of texture.
Okay.
So I'm reading the can, and it's like, oh, if you have knockdown texture, this is what you want to do. And it's got an adjustable nozzle.
Right.
So I try to like get the nozzle adjusted to where I need it, and I can't. So I'm like putting water on it to get all the shit to dissolve off. So I get that resolved, and then I do a test shoot, and then I start spraying, and I get 92.6% of the way, and the fucking can runs out.
Oh no!
And I'm like, and it's in the evening.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Lowe's or Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
So I leave it, let it dry, and then I come back with the sander and do the knockdown part of it. And it looks pretty good, only where my tape lines are, they're proud.
Oh.
Right. So I got that to fix. I got to fix that. But man, it's not easy. It's not an easy job, really. It's not very easy.
Blending is hard.
Yeah. And then I got to go buy some new baseboard and paint.
Right.
And all the stuff. So that's where I'm at. I just think it's fascinating. Like, I'm not tripping on it. I'm not mad about any of it. I'm learning as I go. I still have to fix the closet at some point. I don't even have to texture that shit.
There's been...
I don't have to, but it's difficult.
I want to say when I replaced the thermostat from the old Mercury slide style to a Nest, I had I'm doing a motion here, but it was a significant, like, where the
a wide angle.
Yeah, where the original thermostat was, and there was no texture.
Oh yeah. Oh.
So
there was no texture under the thermostat?
No, it was like they put the plate on and then did the rest of the wall. Yeah. So
you're like, that's not going to work.
Right. And then I think I may be mistaken. It may have been that when the frame of the thing
pulled
off some paper. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll do the thing. I can do the fancy. And it was the same. It was like, what?
It doesn't take a lot.
No, right. I was pretty impressed by it. It was like, oh, well, this. Sure. I was thinking I'm going to have to go get, like, how do you get mud the same texture as the original knockdown? I'm like, and then I ran across a can of it. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go.
Right.
Fucking, like, if I'm hot on the original press, and then, so now I've got a hot row of lumpies. It took a bit. But in the end, I think I was impressed with
how well it does.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like, man, could you imagine, like, back in the day, this was like, you're probably going to mud a 2 foot by 2 foot thing to make the blend work to the knockdown. I
mean, that's kind of where I was headed, is if I'm having trouble where I'm sanding, but the tape line areas are still proud, do I got to add filler mud to the other sections to kind of bring them up so it's a little bit more even? You know what I mean?
I did a bigger chunk of wall somewhere, and I can't remember where it was. I don't remember where it was.
Yeah.
But the texture, it had been like there was like a good 2-year gap between my original attempt and like close.
Yeah.
Versus wherever that second spot was, which was a little bit bigger, the drying time and the knockdown
functionality
was much more easier DIYer. It's like, oh, goddamn, that looks way close. You know, kind of a thing.
I got to go buy another can of texture, you know what I mean, and finish it up. I ended up sanding a bunch of it down, especially where it was a little flatter, like I said, on the proud side. And then my concern was I was kind of running into the tape. So it's like, it's got a high spot there.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just a small chunk of the wall. It's not a big deal, but you want it to look as good as possible.
Right.
And the only thing that would even make it any better, maybe, is if we just did a bigger piece of the wall. And I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, you could, I guess, buy like a 4x4 sheet.
When I looked, God damn, that's going to bug me where I can't remember that second set was. In the end, I went way beyond what I was.
Yeah.
And that helped.
Yeah.
And God damn it.
Yeah, I did that too.
And so but I think I was also resigned to I'm painting this wall. So, as long as my bumps don't look like there's a ring of where I stop.
I mean, that's kind of where
I just kind of toss it, like fling it.
I feel like I
higher.
need to get enough texture on, and then not sand as deep on the seams.
Yeah, and
that would probably fix it. Yeah, and I don't think in that part of the bathroom you would really notice, because it's like I said, it's like a chunk. What's it? 16 inches on center for a stud, so it's about a 16-inch wide piece. That's roughly about the same height. So it's down low in the corner, but there's some art to that for sure.
I did something else. Oh, the rhino liner on Mima.
Yeah.
The bed in changing cans, because that is also a textured application.
Right.
My first to second can and like going around the rail was like, oh, you can clearly tell where the can started to end, and I had to come back like a foot
and fill it back
and then yes, I see.
Right.
I am now a professional automotive painter by my blending techniques.
So you're going to do rhino liner for people with cans at your shop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just, come bring it in, bitch. Fucking look at this. You want to know where the can stops and starts? Fucking, it's sick.
I mean, I watched a bunch of videos too. Like, oh, okay, how do I mean, I get the premise of the whole patching holes and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's just it's a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with the tools,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, just interesting. I'll get it, I'll send you a picture.
It was like this time last year, you were like, I know it's there, and I'm nervous, and I won't ever get to it, but it's there, and I should do it.
Yeah.
And now you're in it.
Yeah.
So fucking...
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that's like, I got to start tackling stuff. Like our kitchen countertops. I'm like, maybe, because they're like, we've got parts where, I mean, they're almost 30 years old, right?
Mm.
So the grout's not doing so good. It's all tile. And there's like some of the tiles are cracked or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, maybe I can just, I don't know, replace just those tiles. And I start really looking at the countertops, like objectively, like, oh, okay, that one's cracked. That one's got a crack in it. Those two are cracked. So there's something going on there. That's cracked. And then you start realizing how many there are that are cracked. And you go, gosh, you might as well just replace it all.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, I've never laid tile or anything on the counter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start looking at alternatives. Like, what if we did cement countertops? Oh, well, there's a whole new learning curve.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
And, if you just want square edges on your countertops, that's easy to do. You can definitely build your own frames and pour your own countertops. You can do them. There's two different ways. You can do them in place right on the fucking countertop, or you can make your forms and pour them and then peel them out and move them, and then you get a better like top because the bottom of the pour is now the top of the countertop.
Right.
So you get a better, smoother pour. You're not relying on a trowel. You're not relying on the trowel to make it smooth. And then you don't have to spend as much time like sanding or polishing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like pluses and minuses. Plus, you can do any color you want. Sometimes you can put like jeweled aggregate in the bottom and then sand it so that stuff shows through, sort of like granite, right? You can do that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of options that are out there, and then you start getting mired in that. Well, shit, could I really pull that off? I could probably pull it off. Oh, and when it comes to something like that, it's like I feel like I'm too much of a perfectionist. Like I want it to look like I paid someone to come in and do it.
Yeah.
I don't want it to look like Jim the idiot poured countertops,
right?
And this is what we ended up with. I don't want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I ran across this YouTube channel called Ambition Strikes, and I don't know what these people do, where they get their money from. It's a young couple, and I caught them in their channel, like in the mid build of a house they had like kind of torn down, and they're rebuilding it.
Okay.
And for me, the fascinating bit is not necessarily the build out of like the walls and all the fucking plumbing and all that, but that's all fine. I mean, I'm interested in it. But what are they doing for their finishes?
Oh, okay.
And how are they putting together their bathrooms? How are they putting together their kitchen? And they did countertops made out of cement for their kitchen. They looked awesome. They're like a dark charcoal color. They add charcoal or like a color into the cement. And then for the bathroom, they have these really large porcelain tiles now. Have you seen these? They're huge. They're like 48 inches or longer. They're huge.
Yeah.
And it's like the size of basically a bathroom countertop.
Oh.
So then you can use one piece of tile that has like a print in it. And then you cut it for the sink and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
To fit the countertop.
Okay.
And then I'm like, but how do you do the edging on a tile? How do you wrap the tile around? Yeah, like how do you do all that kind of stuff? Well, what they did is they bought this metal, it looks like almost like aluminum or something, but that fits under the tile right up against it, and then the front fascia pieces fit in. They cut pieces of this big format tile for the front fascia part of the wraparound.
Okay.
For the countertop. It looked fucking awesome. And then they just grouted all the edges. So that's the only grout is around the front of the thing and around the very front and the sides. That's it. That's the only place they had to use grout, really. And I'm like, that's actually, because you can get anything you want on a large format porcelain tile. You know what I mean? But then you're like, well, how do you cut the porcelain tile?
Right. How'd they cut it?
Grinder.
Oh, like a diamond bladed.
Yeah, like a hand grinder. Like, for instance, they did large format porcelain tile in their shower. So real big pieces. So you got where your handle goes, and he just measures it all out and then takes the grinder, and if you hold it the right way and cut, it just cuts. You like sort of cut it around in a circle, like the blade's like sort of spinning this way, and you're kind of going at an angle and cutting the circle that way. I'm like, oh, that's fucking smart. I can do that. But I don't have a grinder. Now it's like, oh, okay, cool. Now I got to go buy a fucking tool. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like one thing after another. And then, so it's like I get mired in the planning phase. There's too many options, and some of them are just too expensive. Like, I'd love to have granite or something.
Sure.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
But then you're talking crazy expensive, you know?
Like, I watch enough videos where they put adapters and bits and blades on an angle grinder that I would never have thought like possible. Like, shit, that's a thing. My dad, he you may have seen it. He made like a bowl out of like a probably a foot across cross section of like a an oak.
Uh-huh.
And he went at this thing with like an angle grinder and like a set of chisels.
Yeah.
Like it's the hardest possible way to do this.
Yeah.
Because he was like, this is what I have and this is how I do this. You know, and you're like, oh. And it wasn't until, and it was.
You know what that reminds me of is Chandler and I doing his Pinewood Derby car with my Dremel.
Yes.
I carved his fucking car with a Dremel and a sanding bit on it.
So it's he did what he wanted, but it was grotesquely inefficient.
Sure.
And he could have gotten a deeper bowl. One, if he'd have known about some of these options, or two, if I'd have known. I went, I see how shallow his thing was, and I'm like, yeah, that's going to take a lot of 60 grit, and I could probably get in there with like a mouse or something and like get deeper, but man, that would take so long. And then the great ever-listening algorithms on your phones or my search engines feeds me, at some point years ago, feeds me these angle grinder bits that you attach to the angle grinder, and it is specifically designed for like hogging out concave and bowls.
Like a curved?
Yeah. It's like a CNC curved bit for your fucking angle grinder that you could do what my dad did on this oak stump piece
like a tenth of the time
in an hour, 2 hours, if you just like went hogging and got the bowl you wanted.
Yeah.
And I went, fucking goddamn. And they make a disc.
Yeah.
So that you could get a really large concave shape.
Yeah.
And then they make like a ball tip where you could get deep with like
a shaver on it or something.
Yeah. So you could do something more akin to like a rocks glass. You've only got 4 inches in diameter to work with, and you have to go down.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a bowl or a salad bowl where you have so you could use the disc.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I have these bits in my list. I'm like, man, for Christmas, I'm gonna get, But my dad has kind of walked off
doing that stuff,
oak shape art.
Okay.
For the moment, and I don't know if he'd be like, oh, that's awesome, and then it'd end up in this outside tool shed, and I'd be like, fuck, where are those bits?
Right.
Make me a bowl, god damn it.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
tools.
Yeah.
I mean, I would go fast.
Yeah. I mean, I think for more or less, the big one would just be the grinder. The guy.
So do you not have an angle grinder?
I don't have one. But the guy that I was watching when he was cutting the porcelain tile, because it's super hard, I guess, he was actually taking a sponge and running it alongside the blade, and then so it was like catching up water off of the sponge and then cutting. And I was like, oh, that's pretty smart, I mean, it's not impossible. It's just sometimes you just got to get off the pot and do it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And you got to put it out there.
I think somewhere in this would have to be pre-COVID. I ran speaker wire for in-ceiling speakers that have just been sitting
up there
waiting to put in-ceiling speakers in.
Yeah.
It's the infrastructure is there.
Yeah.
And in this case, the price point of buying speakers is the gatekeeper to that. It's like, well, kid needs a thing, or the yard needs other thing. So it's like, well, I have speakers right now. I don't really need it. So it kind of gets pushed. But there is a halfway done in ceiling
surround sound
speaker
setup
system with all the cables ready to go, but waiting on, well, just buy the fucking speakers.
Right.
Buy the speakers. You could be done in the length of time it takes to go from the wall that's already wired to the receiver, which you already have,
So is it a matter of just cutting holes in the drywall and mounting a
yes,
speaker
because
and hooking them up?
All 4 wires are already run all the way down to a panel, already connected to banana plugs.
Yeah. That's what I have too.
So it's like,
yeah,
it's there.
Yeah.
It'll probably happen this year.
Oh, nice.
Because we're close to having, you get older, you're like, well, I've knocked out some things. That child is somewhat self-sufficient, and it turns out,
yeah,
this is a project we can tackle this year.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to get that done this year, hopefully.
Yeah, with the whole countertop thing, it's like I said, I looked and I go, well, I can just replace some tiles, and I can get my oscillating tool and get a bit on there and grind out all the grout, replace those broken tiles, and then just regrout it. That wouldn't be that hard. Like, I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
It would make a big fucking mess, but I could do it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, God, it's a lot of tiles. Like, we have a lot of just cracked tiles. And I'm like, is there something wrong underneath that all these tiles are cracked? It's in a couple locations where it's spread across a couple of tiles.
Yeah.
And then you're like, something's wrong right there.
Yeah. That wood's warped or
it flexed or something.
Yeah.
And there's a couple places where it's like we have one small section of countertop that's on the other side of the oven, in between the oven and the fridge. Mm-hmm. And it's just like a little small countertop.
Yeah.
And I look towards the back, and there's like 2 tiles that are on the edge that are totally broken. Like, no one ever touches that shit. And I'm like, how did those break? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would have to replace those because now I know they're there.
Yeah.
And then, then it just becomes, well, if I'm going to do that much work and try and preserve all this other shit that I might just end up accidentally breaking or whatever and replacing some other ones.
Right.
Why don't you just do something new that doesn't have a bunch of grout in it?
Yeah.
That's the big one.
Well, and there's 2 working for you, like the advent of everything else. And as you get older, you were talking about like the origins of cement countertops, like, are probably coming the people that had those early instances are coming from artisans who understand and can make forms.
Yeah.
At this point, the concrete countertop acceptance is like, it's convenient, it's simple,
it's cheap.
It's cheap, DIY.
Yeah.
So the ecosystem around that in silicone forms, ready-made forms, YouTube videos on how to DIY to make a lot of the things that early on you would have went 10 years ago, 7 years ago, you know what? This has gone to shit, but I would like to do concrete would solve a whole bunch of our problems, and everyone, Shan and I, are comfortable with the aesthetic of what this would look like, but I'm a QA guy. I'm not a carpenter, and I don't know. I'm not going to nail a form for my entire counter on the first shot. So I'm going to fuck this up. Never mind. Right?
There's a little bit of that, but also like, well, once I move it, I'll break it.
Right.
Or something like that.
Sure. There's that with 3D printing's the same way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on my second 3D printer, and probably 6 months after the second printer I have, after my brother got a resin style printer, I went, I should have fucking waited. Like, and all of that kind of trickles out into 3D modeling. Like, I want to make a mini of a thing. Well, I have to go to Fiverr or some 3D engineer, some kid out of school that can 3D engineer me a character that looks like me, and then I'll print it. Well, now, that's 5-10 years ago. Now you can go to a website and create a digital feature of what you're looking at: a mustache, cheekbones too high, too low, to the side, wide eyes, thin eyes, purple eyes, green eyes, yellow eyes. you can dial all of that in. That generates you a thing. And then you print it on your resin or 3D printer, of which now prints at a resolution that would make the guys who make Monopoly figures jealous at the detail and fidelity. And you're like, fuck, that happened in 10 years or less.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck, that industry went
the thing that like makes me more concerned is currently it's a functional kitchen.
Right.
and like, okay, so at some point we're going to go, right? Clear all the countertops off.
Right.
Move it wherever, start parking the cars on the driveway for who knows how long.
Yeah.
Right. Which is that's like a thing for me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And tear up the functional kitchen to maybe fuck up a thing that you have never done before.
Right.
And I will do absolutely do my best.
Sure.
To not make that happen.
Right.
But at the same time, like, there's no guarantees.
Right.
And it makes me really fucking nervous.
Yeah.
About.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, what we have works. It's ugly and it's not great because it just needs work.
Mm.
But at the same time, I'm also going, this needs to be replaced.
Right.
But it works now.
Right. Yeah.
And if I go through the process of ripping it all out, now we've got a giant mess. Our kitchen is not functional. We won't be able to make food in the kitchen for who knows how long until you get it resolved.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, also knowing that is a thing that becomes the priority.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then sitting there at home working and being able to turn over there and see that it's a fucking disaster waiting for me.
Oh, yeah.
Would be really hard.
Yeah. Like, how do you disassociate a project that you know is underway, but you can't touch
underway and really important.
Sure.
You know? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not like trying to whine or complain. I'm just saying, like, from a functionality, household happiness standpoint.
We just, nothing to the degree of the cabinets that will impact daily life. Like, we just, with the advent of the potentiality of produce prices, right? Venus is like, we should put in a garden this year. She's like, I want the terrace on the side part of the yard. Let's yank that out and let's put in a raised garden bed. I'm like, I'm all for that. Like, we've had a garden in the past, but usually it's at the far back end of the property.
Yeah.
And if it's not in my face or then it's not in her face, then it
gets forgotten.
And no one's going to take care of it. The weeds get out of hand, and you've put whatever investment. It's a lot. It's a lost cause. And I said, yeah. The conversation was really, it spanned probably 10 minutes of like, we should have a garden. I agree. This needs to go. I'm tired of it. I agree. I agree. Yes, yes, yes. Same page. And then I think like a day later, as I'm contemplating, like, how would we facilitate that project?
Yeah.
And I went, here's what would happen in our home ownership as partners together in this house, knowing what I know. We would, if we just go through the motions, we would probably start the disassemble and the clearance of the terrace, and that will make its way to a pile to the RV pad.
Yeah.
Where then we would either slowly put it into the trash bins or borrow the truck so we could take it to the dump. Over time, if it didn't all fit in one truckload, and then, so the terrace is now disassembled and deconstructed, and that takes you into June. Well, now, we buy or facilitate the construction of a raised garden bed, and then we have to go borrow the truck again to get dirt of a reasonable size to fill the garden bed. Okay. Well, now it's fucking August. No one's planting anything in August. So we collectively, between the two of us, we will have spent 8 months in an idea that we both wanted done by spring planting, like 60 days from now.
Right.
So I went to her and I went, okay, I have an idea.
Yeah.
I said, here's how we need to do this different. I said, you and I, both of us want a raised garden bed here. I said, so we need to know the garden bed that we want, either if we're buying it or we're putting it together. I said, I don't want something that's going to last 2 years and then the boards are going to rot. I don't want pre-treated lumber leaching into the soil. So I'm concerned about buying something that I'm not going to have to replace.
Yeah.
What are our solutions there? Let's start picking something out. We need to pick out the sides. And I said, and then we need to have this done and the sequencing like dialed in, so that way we take something apart, we take it to the dump, we put the thing that we want to put plants in there in like the span of 30 days and have an agreement together that we are putting plants and expecting something to come, because otherwise this is a 2026 realization, not a 2025 one.
Right.
And
yeah,
we need something this year. The idea is to get something this year.
Yeah.
And the conversation was like, both of us, like, well, yeah, like that makes total sense. Like, why? But that has only happened because over our 300 years of marriage, to which it seems.
How old was Bob? 90?
Right. He was like 350 at least. You know, both of us are like openly conversing, like, for fuck's sake, like, between the two of us, we've learned something.
We should have started this in October.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. Well, November, what was it? What was election day?
Yeah.
Hashtag sorry.
Well, yeah, but you didn't know.
Well, we didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we didn't. Anyway. So, a lot of it comes down to project planning. Like, how can we as a household recognize this is going to suck? We're going to fuck up somewhere along the way, but the iterations, we have to be able to say, are we learning from the things that we've done in the past where we were like, we spent $300 on cinder blocks, pre-treated lumber, soil, and then, Green Acres plants.
And the shit just sat over there.
And the shit just sat.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 years later, the boards were gone. The cinder blocks were reused to, stop a car.
The plants are overgrown.
Right.
Yeah.
And the weeds in the back have overtaken it, and there's like ants back there, and no one wants to go back there anyway because of the ants.
Right.
And the fruit trees that are like now somehow magically donored from the squirrels and the property adjacent, you're like, it's too far of a walk, man.
But the thing of it is, too, is if you do plant a garden, you have to work the garden.
Right. And there's that, too.
That's part of it. A big part of it.
I can't tell you if we'll know what we're going to plant to make sure that we're going to use the things. A lot of it comes from, like, I just don't want to do maintenance. So, and she's busy. I'm busy. So whatever we plant, we need to be like, okay, let's not boil the ocean here. What would be handy? Tomatoes? Probably. I would like to have some squash. And if that's it, then I'm fucking fine.
Oh, you definitely need cucumbers.
Cucumbers? I'd leave that. Well, fucking, if I fed her dad cucumbers,
zucchini.
He'd probably make me pickles.
Oh.
Take it easy, sir.
Hey.
Crookneck squash gets it done. If you know.
Yeah.
Your son knows.
It's just, it's tough because you have this idea and in your mind, you can visualize it completed.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So then you're like, the process of between where we're at and that completed visualization in your mind is pretty vast.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's like the Grand Canyon is
I
what's
struggle
in
with that
between.
all the time.
Yeah.
Like you and I this time last year, I was telling you probably at this table, I will fix Mima.
Right.
I am no closer to fixing that. I have adamant goals to get that done. Now, some of that
You fix Mima, then you don't have to borrow a truck.
Right. Some of that gatekeeping is certainly monetary issues.
Yeah.
It would be it's not frivolous because I consider it important. It's not frivolous to Venus because she knows it's important to me. Is it a dire need? Not necessarily, but it is important. But my goals and outlining of what needs to get done, how I'm going to do it, the components I need to do it are all there.
Yeah.
A lot of it is I'm missing money. Convenient, as is most people, right?
I'm missing money.
Money. Hashtag Ulanzi. Not a sponsor. Convenience of time is the other biggest component.
It's one of those things where I realize as we're having this conversation, Mima, my countertops and my cabinets, the flooring I want to put in the house, they are things that you just have to prioritize.
Sure.
And go after.
I would agree.
You just have to do them. Otherwise, I'm going to be in this mode until I'm 70 and never get it done.
That certainly is a concern. And that's why I think this year, I couldn't tell you why. This year, I feel much more emboldened and open to saying, these are the places where I'm falling short in trying to execute the things that I know I want to do or need to do. And Venus and I as partners want to do for the house or for the yard or for the kids, but are slow to execute because miscommunication or life just gets in the way kind of a thing. But yet, like you said, as a parent, prioritizing is hard. It is a fluid thing.
Yeah.
But this year seems to be slightly different in how, okay, we can agree we want to do this. It's not unimportant to either of us. We do want to do this. Let's do this thing. How do we do this? How do we actually, in the year 2025, being married for 387 years, how do we finally start putting some of these things in place?
Yeah.
So that way we can check off the box and be like, fuck, I've waited so long to do that thing. Can we? Yeah. Well, why don't we? I don't know. Well, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you start the ball.
It's trepidation, really.
Sometimes
it's like your own trepidation, or it's the trepidation that you impart on your partner, even though they probably don't even know.
Yeah.
Are they going to be okay with me ripping all this shit up and not having a coffee maker for 6 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
You know, there's all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, what's going to happen to the coffee maker? We're not going to have a fucking sink. We're not going to have, everything's going to be fucking broken.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's like, and then will I be able to install the sink correctly? Will I be able to do the blah, 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 blah?
Right.
So there's so many unknowns that like really hold you back. And I watch enough DIY YouTube stuff that I'm like, oh, really? That's all they're doing?
Yeah.
And it makes me go, I can totally do that.
I am often in that vein. I am often humbled by, every once in a while, you may get these too. The resurfacing a brake pad that's happening in some South Asian country.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Or making rotors or whatever.
Yeah,
and
the brake pad manufacturing.
Right. This community of people are using tools and ingenuity
that you wouldn't go anywhere near.
That I would not even touch. And it's like...
Yep. I know.
OSHA standards are way out the window.
Right. Which is why we should just get rid of OSHA.
Right. But they are completing a thing...
Yeah.
Soup to nuts.
Yeah, with no complaints.
They're just doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have a lot of times those are just straight up cross checks as to you need.
Dude, look what these guys are doing.
Absolutely. Like this
with
guy.
With fucking sandals on.
You're like, I can't sand that thing because I don't have 80 grit angle grinder blades, but some dude in Pakistan,
Bangladesh,
cut squares out of cardboard and compressed it and made his own fucking sanding bit out of cardboard squares and absolutely went through a piece of oak like it was nothing. And I'm like, well, fucking Amazon's going to take 2 days to deliver me a 60 grit angle grinder blade. I just can't do it. And you're like,
I don't have the right stuff.
Yeah, I fuck, man. It's going to be 2-day shipping, dude.
I know.
I have.
I feel it.
Oh shit.
Oh, serious concern.
A lot of that is like fucking.
Yeah.
Why? Get off your ass?
Yeah.
I need to get off my ass.
Yeah.
And just start punching through some stuff.
Yeah.
I wish I had more. I feel like if I had
ambition,
see that's the problem I have. I have a laundry list of things that I would love to tackle.
Yeah.
I tend to prioritize what do the kids need.
Yeah.
Xander needs help with a thing. That's more important to me right now.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that I'm not taking time for myself or for Venus, but that's a hard juggle. It's a hard juggle. I have no regrets, but dad husbanding is a hard juggle.
Yeah.
I am very ambitious on paper. Execution is difficult.
I'm going to admit something. And this is hard for me to admit here.
Okay.
I bought my wife a dash cam 2 years ago.
Oh. Yeah.
And installed it last weekend.
Oh, nice. And she was like, why did my review mirror get bigger?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it was one of those things where it was like, okay, well, the dash cam comes with a cable and a cigarette plug adapter.
Okay.
I don't want the fucking cigarette plug adapter.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to power it, run a fucking cable. It should be hidden away.
Sure.
Cables run appropriately.
Right.
I don't want to run a cable like across the roof and down the A-pillar and into the dash and then have it fucking pop out and plug into the cigarette lighter.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Okay.
And I didn't know because I wasn't sure how I was going to do this. My initial thought was, that I was going to tap into the 12-volt adapter that's in the dashboard.
Okay.
And literally wire in another 12-volt plug that I could put the car charger bit they gave you and plug that in so that I could plug the USB into that.
Okay.
Behind the dash.
Okay.
That was what I was going to do. But then I found that they make like add a fuse
Oh, right.
installer kits, and I
Okay.
was like, oh my God. So I ordered that,
Mm-hmm.
and it took me a couple of weeks, and then I finally installed it. So she has a dash cam now. Now I just have to figure out why her rear camera's not working that I installed a year or more ago.
Oh.
But all the wiring's in the car. I just have to figure out why it wasn't
So now
working.
she has a dash cam.
Now she has a dash cam. But it's one of those things where it was like being sort of mentally cock-blocked by my own
Retentiveness.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I want it this way.
Yeah.
I don't 100%
Because
know
I
how
want
to
it
get there.
specific.
So I'm not going to do anything
Yes.
until.
Right.
And then the until
Yeah.
is
Right.
like unobtainium.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I struggle with that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway.
That's fucking, I think that carries over everywhere.
Yeah.
I am constantly, like when I look at a lot of the YouTube channels shit that I'm sure that we probably share between the two of each other, like I am constantly just flabbergasted by how content creators are a thing. Like, how do you earn a living by just...
Right.
So today, we're going to make a planter box.
Right.
And that's your job. You make a thing on camera, you edit, or you have editors, you upload it, and that's what you do today. Or you have what seems like, at least on its face, some sort of endless capital to do home renovations, a house build, a tiny home build. You just fix and repair cars from Copart. Like, how...
Is the money that good?
Yeah, where...
Yeah.
Whose balls need suckling?
That's what I'm saying about this specific channel, Ambition Strikes.
Yeah.
Look it up if you get a chance. It's a husband and wife, a young couple, and they have a baby. And they're pumping out very high quality videos.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of them work, it seems like. I don't know.
God damn, dude.
I don't
know.
They have like a piece of land up in the mountains that they built their house, and then they built their mom like a little house, literally a little house.
Yeah.
That's like a mom house away from the house.
Yeah.
And they're putting in all of their own septic and water systems and electrical. And I mean, and then they bought another house that was like this sort of like mobile home thing that was completely falling apart. And they tore that fucker down and decided to replace it, built the entire thing basically by themselves. I think the only thing they subbed out was drywall,
That's crazy.
And it's like, and this is what they do all the time. Sometimes their kids around, they're like, well, we just went and bought our flooring. Let's put flooring in. And you're like, that was...
Listen, I'm middle class. I know exactly how much that costs.
That's thousands of dollars.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
And I said flabbergasted. If I'm being honest, I think the word I was looking for was jealous. Like, I'm jealous of how that happens.
Right.
Because I
guess
don't know.
They're taking the time to film it and put it out there, and someone's watching, and that
Someone's
channel
paying.
grows, and
Yeah.
they get a sponsor somewhere. I don't know. I guess that's how that works.
It's crazy.
I don't know that. I guess I don't have that personality. Not a sponsor.
Well, we only have 11 viewers.
Right. Eight
and a half.
8 viewers.
You know the half.
Yeah.
You're the half.
We had like 9 this month or week. So
We're close to time, but I have one last.
One last hurrah.
So my dad
Yeah.
came down last week.
Yeah.
As per usual, his post-it note of things he needs to ask his eldest son.
Okay.
So he sits down and we had one of which was
Where do babies come from?
right, son. How'd you get here? I'm like, well, Dad, you
The
see,
stork brought me.
yeah, you see, Dad. when the Germans get together with engineering and code, they build
babies.
Me. He had like a clerical thing that he needed for like some umpire stuff, and I created an account for him. And he out of the blue, he's looking at his post-it note, and he goes, "What can you tell me about Temu?"
Oh boy!
And I went, "Oof, Dad,
that's a loaded question."
I went. I said, "Actually." Okay, and he's like, "I'm just curious because I've seen some stuff.
What do you need on Temu?"
And I went, "Whew." I said, the quick American answer to that is, it's all shit, Dad. It's
cheap shit.
It's all shit." And I said, "But in actuality, it's not. You're going to get hit and miss. It kind of depends on what you're looking for, what you got, and the timeline in which you need it." I said, "There are bargains to be had, and there are scams and products that will absolutely leave you furious." I said, "It kind of just depends. The quality is, I said, Harbor Freight is like the
Temu of
like Home Depot," and he's like, "Right." And I went, "Now imagine if there was a Harbor Freight for Harbor Freight." And he went, "Oh." And I went, "There you go." And he got it.
But I feel
said,
like it's even worse than that.
Right. And I said, "But it's hit and miss." I said, "You've probably seen some of the things, if you're asking me this question, the same stuff I've seen. I've seen a number of carpenter YouTube channels that are like, I bought $1,000 worth of carpentry stuff off of Temu, and I'm rating them. And some of the products that they get
are pretty good.
Are decent. They're like, this is better than what you could go and get. Like it will do the job, and it's 1/8 the cost." Like,
but don't you think like Amazon also has Temu style products?
I mean, the way that you can distribute and then set up.
Well, what
Amazon
I mean by that
store.
is there's always, like, you look up a thing and there's always a shitload of Chinese companies that sell the same exact thing, right?
Yes.
At roughly the same price.
With like random number generator or name generator off by one vowel.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I feel like that happens on Amazon. Are those just slightly better than Temu?
It might be. So, and then I get into like, I'm like, it's hit and miss, Dad. I can't tell you that it's an absolute scam, but at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. It would be on a case-by-case basis. And I went, I tell you what, hold on. And I yell down the hallway. I'm like, "Piper, come in here." And I'm like, "You're not busy?" And she's like, "Oh." I go, "Tell your grandpa what your era of experience is. Tell him what Temu is." And she went, "Well, it's like the Walmart for Walmart."
That's hilarious.
And I went, "That's it."
Yeah.
I went, "That's it."
Yeah,
She's
sure.
like, if Walmart had a Walmart version of itself, that's what it would be.
Wow.
Your products would be and the timelines and shipping would be
Yeah.
And whether or not you got what you got would be
Yeah.
kind of like if you went to Walmart and were like, "I need a screwdriver," and you got a bit that only lasted you 2 rotations because it's shit alloy. She's like, you get that bit at fraction of a cost through Temu.
Yeah.
And you're like, maybe you get a good alloy batch of a thing you need. Maybe you don't. But it was $1.99, and could you wait 2 weeks to get it? Well, then maybe you got a bargain. Yeah, tough to say.
Yeah.
So it was pretty funny.
That is funny. Yeah. Quick update on the Cadillac.
Oh, go.
Got a call from him today.
Yes.
Everything's a go as far as the repair.
Sweet.
New diff is being ordered today.
As we speak.
He says probably overnight, but maybe not because it was later in the day. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe Friday.
Coming from
Reno.
You better hope they get over the fucking pass, or that thing's going to be locked up there until Saturday.
Well, they're not even open on the weekend, so if it doesn't come by Friday, then it's going to be Monday.
Oh.
Anyway.
Well, yeah.
So hopefully at the latest early next week, I should have my car back.
Hot sauce, baby.
Right?
Still the worst warranty company ever. But
it's going to cost me $330 or something. And that is the $100 deductible, which I knew about when I bought the warranty. But what I didn't know was that the warranty company would go, "Oh, well, we're only going to pay you this much for the labor rate."
Oh.
So if their labor rate's $175 an hour, and then the warranty company goes, "Yeah, but we're only going to pay $146 an hour." Now I have to pay the difference.
The diff.
So if it's 6 hours of work times 20 whatever dollars that is, that's how much I got to pay over the $100 deductible.
Sure.
And any difference in parts costs that the warranty company decides they don't want to shell out for.
Could you tell me, in the last 365 days, all of the new components that you've gotten
on my car?
On your car?
360
harness.
Oh,
injectors, a manifold.
Okay, so ECU, wiring harness. There was an EVAP,
a sensor of some
solenoid.
Sort. Okay, solenoid.
And not an inject. Yes, I did have injectors.
All four, or just the one that they?
It might have just been one.
Okay.
The igniter. What's the spark plug? I can't. It's lost me.
Spark plug.
The thing that sparks the plug. The cap.
Distributor.
No, it's not distributor. What are they called?
Coils.
Now?
Ignition coils.
Coil packs.
Okay.
It's had at least one coil pack.
Okay. An intake manifold or an exhaust manifold?
No, I think that ended up being, I'm not even sure what they fixed.
It was,
to be straight up,
decked, wasn't it?
It did get, yes.
Machined. So it has at least a head gasket.
Yes.
A new head gasket.
Yeah. And now a diff.
Yeah. You're rolling almost
in a new car. Yeah. Yeah. And then at some point, if I have the car long enough, I'll probably have to pull the intake manifold off and clean out all the intake ports of the valves, because it is direct injected.
Oh.
Is your car direct injected?
Yes.
Yeah. It's something you'll want to think about at some point.
No, man, I'll just drive that bitch off a cliff.
Oh. Everyone, I know, it seems like everyone's having trouble with their cars, like right now. You did, Chandler, me, my neighbor across the street, my neighbor down the street.
Yeah.
Somebody else. I can't think of who it was. Melly's car had head gaskets on it last.
Yeah.
So it's like, God damn. Anyway.
I think that's probably it would seem oddly like a crux of convenience, but I think what we're probably running into is a lot of Americans starting to retain their car purchases longer than probably the late to mid 2000s to even in the teens.
Yeah.
Due to economic struggles where they're like, no, this 5-year car now needs to stretch me 10 plus, or I'm not rotating a lease every year anymore or every 2 years. I need to hold on to this car because maybe it's paid off, or this is a payment on an interest rate that I can actually afford currently.
Yep. So
you are riding that bitch, and now you've got, the stereotypical 100,000 miles, 60,000, 70,000 a mile, 150,000 mile maintenance things that a lot of people in those mid 2000s, 2010s weren't running into, because they're like, nah, man, I'm just going to go get a new fucking thing. It's 4 years old. Fucking kick this bitch to the curb.
There's an article that shows up on Apple News Plus, which I do not subscribe to. I just read regular Apple News.
I do. Send it to me.
And it is called The Economics of Driving Your Car Until the Wheels Fall Off.
Ooh.
And I see it show up as a News Plus article. I'm like, fuck, I want to read that. And I can't. So if you see it, let me know. You can PDF.
The economics of
driving your vehicle until the wheels fall off.
Remind me.
Okay.
I'll look it, and then I'll export a
PDF.
Hashtag I didn't really do that, Tim Apple. Don't hold it against me. Please, no licensing. Hashtag Gulanzi.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor.
So anyway.
And
yeah, it just is an interesting thought of what the fuck that article probably says because I can't read it. So, but that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
That they're writing articles about it.
And, our parents probably know all about that. It's like, no.
Well, I don't know. My dad, we had a new car every 2 years because he just beat the shit out of, he was a salesman. So he was the kind of guy like pulling the tachometer off not to put miles on his car.
Oh, shit.
Or putting a gear reducer on there. So he only put half the miles on
nice.
there. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So
hashtag didn't really happen. That's alleged.
I don't know anything about it.
No, it wasn't us.
Wasn't me. Anyway.
Anyway, we are most certainly at time.
All right. Well, you should wash your hands.
Return the cart.
Wash your ass, please.
Stay up to date on your shots.
Make the call if you need to.
Register to vote.
Check your oil, Tony.
Pick up a broom.
Do the kindness.
And we'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye. What are you going to say? Did we miss one?
No.
Okay, good.
I'm just pointing around.
Oh, fucking... You're like...
Yeah. But I...
Shit all over me. Okay. Bye.